Now, we want to talk more about the threat facing journalists in Sri Lanka. And joining us from New York with his insight is Bob Dietz. He's the Asia Program Coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists. Thanks for joining us, Bob. And first, let's talk about journalist safety. How many journalists in Sri Lanka in recent years have been assaulted, threatened? How many have been killed?
Well, our records go back to 1999, and we have 16 journalists who were killed. Some of them were killed in crossfire in war activities, but there were 9 who were killed by premeditated murder, and of those 9 cases, there's never been a prosecution. So there's absolute, complete impunity for anyone who wants to just kill a journalist in Sri Lanka. That's been the record since 1999, at least.
And of the 9 who have been murdered, is the government at all involved in these murders or in acts of intimidation involving journalists?
We stay away from making that outright accusation, frankly. Without a police investigation and without a prosecution and without a trial and a conviction, it's difficult to point fingers. Certainly the government is seen as I think the appropriate term is the prime suspect in a lot of these killings, and especially in this recent spate of violence that we've seen in Colombo. I think what we're seeing in Colombo is an attack on journalists that's part of the government's offensive in the north. Frankly, in December 2006, there was an attack on Lasanta's newspaper, the printing press as his newspaper, and a lot of journalists in Colombo time the government assault on journalists starting at that point, and that was about the same time that they had pulled back from the peace process with the LTTE and really launched an all-out offensive in the north as well.
All right, let's talk about press freedom. Both domestic and international reporters have been banned from reporting in the war zone area in northern Sri Lanka. Have you been talking to the government to get them to lift that ban?
We, for a long time, we've always pressed to have that done, frankly, and it's an old song for us to be singing. And, you know, we continue to press to have that happen, but we realize that the government is really intent on controlling the news flow out of there. We don't expect them to lift that ban. It would be good if they did. And I think the experience of governments has been that when there's a ban on reporting, journalists, especially in this digital age, go back to rely on secondary or tertiary sources, amateur photographers in the field or partisan photographers on one side or the other of the battle. And what you get is a very slanted picture, both sides denouncing the other. You don't have reporters, skilled reporters, experienced reporters going in and giving that balanced or more nuanced picture of the situation. What you do tend to get is more emotive reporting rather than more accurate reporting.
In addition to that slanted reporting, what are some of the other results of this media environment in Sri Lanka where there is so much fear and government control?
You know, Christy, I just spent a week in Colombo. I didn't try and get up north, and I spoke with more than 20 journalists in Colombo. And of those 20 journalists, only 3 were ready to speak to me on the record. The rest of them said, you know, I'll tell you what's going on, you can't quote me. And if you're going to use my words, run them by me first, please, and then don't source them to me. They're clearly intimidated, and these attacks, on journalists are clearly working, and it's an intimidated group of people covering the war in Sri Lanka.
A major chilling effect on journalists who are
Very
working there in Sri Lanka trying to cover the story. Yeah. Bob Dietz of the Committee to Protect Journalists, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Christy.